let me start with the very important things that are required for going into the advanced Java course. Uh, like first I will start with, so today's session we will be trying to understand the core Java basics which are usually required to go into the advanced Java, so that I'll be comfortable teaching you advanced Java, so that you will know the basics and everything. Okay. Right. So the important basics that are required for going into the advanced Java is object-oriented programming. So anyone having any idea on what is object-oriented programming? So if you have any idea, you can share with me. So let it be an interactive session so that it will be interesting for you and interesting for me as well. Object-oriented program. So anyone want to share any thoughts about this? Okay. So let me only try to deal with it. So whenever we talk about programming being advanced, I mean object-oriented programming. So Java obviously is an object-oriented programming. So Java, C++, Python. So these are all object-oriented programming. Whereas C is not a object-oriented programming; it is a procedure-oriented program. Okay, then let me just try to make you understand these things. Any programming language. So any programming language is said to be object-oriented programming language. Object-oriented programming language if it is developed if it is developed using a class and an object. Okay, so whenever we are talking about any programming language that is object-oriented programming language, so they are said to be developed on the basic concepts of class and an object. Okay, so I hope you know what is a class. So a class is a logical entity basically. So what is a class here? A class is a logical entity. What is a class here? So class is a logical entity. So whenever I'm talking about an entity, so entity can be a person, can be a place, or a thing basically. So this is like in general viewing. So whenever we talk about an entity, it is a person, place, or anything. Okay, so which is logical in nature. Okay, so which is logical in nature. A logical entity that contain, so that usually contain data and methods. A logical entity that contain data and methods. Now, for example, if I have to create a class in Java, so generally what I'll do, I'll just use class followed by the class name. So let's say employee class. Okay. So employee class. So what I'm going to do here, so class employee. So what I'm going to create here, a class. So what is the class name? Employee. So I told you, right? It's a logical entity. So until and unless you create the object, you will not be able to use its resources. What are its resources? Its resources are data and methods. Okay, so now what this employee class contain? So this employee class contain data. So now for example, I say I will have employee number. Okay, so I'll have employee number and I will go for employee name. So employee name, and I will also be going for the salary of the employee. So this is what I say, a logical entity that will contain data and methods. So this is usually the data. Okay, so this is usually the data. Now let me have a constructor. So basically, you know what is a constructor, right? So that is my main intention behind explaining this particular core Java basics. So to make you understand the real basics, what all required. Okay, so employee constructor I will take. So what is this employee constructor will do? So employee constructor will try to assign the data. So assign the data. So how I'll assign the data? So what I will be doing here is I will be going for. So let me take the Eclipse. So I'll be using Eclipse NetBeans for our program. So employee. So employee, I will be saying I will be trying to go for int envo, comma string ename and double ESAL. Okay. So what my main intention is? So my main intention is to send those values from the call. So send values from the call. So what exactly I'm going to do here? So I'm going to send those values from the call. Okay. So how I'll do that? I'll tell you. So let me try to use a this keyword. Okay. So what does this keyword do? So this keyword will try to access these data values. Okay. So this keyword will be able to access these data values. So this dot envo is equal to envo. So this dot envo is equal to envo, and then I will go for this dot ename. This dot ename is equal to ename. Okay, so where these ename come from? From here. So from where do these values will come from? From the call. Okay, so we'll make that call also. So now I will say, so this dot esal. Okay, so I'll try to run this also, don't worry. So this dot esal is equal to esal. So this dot esal is equal to esal. Okay, so this is the constructor that I am going to use, and just I will try to display the values. Okay, so display. So what I'm going to do now? So I'm going to display those values. So how I'm going to display those values basically? So to display those values, I'll try to use system dot out dot println. So which are basically for displaying them. So println. So I will display envo, and I will go for so displaying the e number, displaying the e name, and I will also display the ESAL. Okay, I'll also display the ESAL. So what exactly I have done here? So I have created a class employee. Okay, so from that class employee, I have my data and my methods. Okay, so I told you right, it's a logical entity. So until unless you create the object, you will not be able to access those data or the methods. Okay, so how I'll create the object now? So in order to create the object, I can go for okay. So what is an object? We need to understand first. Object is a physical entity. A physical entity, so that is also said to be so a physical entity that is also said to be. So what is an object here? Object is a physical entity, so that is also said to be an instance of the class. An instance of the class. Okay, so what is an object here? Object is a physical entity, so that is also said to be the instance of the class. Okay, so it is said to be the instance of the class. So now how we will be creating the object for this employee class? So I'll just take the employee here. Okay, so employee. So for this, I will try to create another class. So something like public access employee. Something like this. So wherein I will have the main method. Okay, so wherein I'll have the main method. So what I'll be doing here, I will be going for a main method. So I will say public static void main, and I will go for string args. Okay, string args. So here I will be going for creating the object. So how will I create the object for this? So I will say employee e is equal to new employee. So new employee. So here I will be saying, so employee, so employee is a constructor, right? So in the instantiation you need to send those values. Okay, so you need to send those values. Now for example, I will send the numbers, the e number rather, so and I will be sending the salary. Okay, so in this way I am going to send the salary and the name and the e number. Okay, so this is obviously the object creation. Okay, so don't think that this is, so this is not the object, so it is just a variable. So it is just a variable, or I can say it as an object variable also. It is just a variable basically. So this is the object, always remember. So most of the people think that this is the object. So this is just a variable which is storing, or which is getting assigned by the object. Okay, so this is called object instantiation. Okay, so you might know the things, but still it is my responsibility to give you all the details. So display, so e dot display, so what does e dot display do? So e dot display will display all the information. So now we will have to make this into the program. So now what I'll do is I will try to create, okay, so first of all I'll try to create a project. Okay, so I'll go for a new project. Okay, let me just go into the general perspective. So and I will just create the project here. So new Java project, and I will go for, okay, something like 10 a.m. Java 10 a.m. Okay, so Java 10 a.m. project name. Say next. Say finish. So now we have created a project basically. Okay, so we'll right click here and try to create a class, and that class so will be our main class. Okay, so access emp. Okay, so access emp, so I'll just try to put access emp over here and say finish, and let me, so this I will try to take it up. Okay, so now uh, let me just copy the things from here. Okay, so e dot display, so but whenever I'm trying to get it up here, so what exactly access emp? Okay, so say this, so public access, okay, class, so public class access emp, sorry, so I should say class. Okay, so class access emp, so it is asking for employee. So now what I'll do is I'll just go here and create this class. So this is what I'm going to do. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. So now you can see that we have created a class employee, and we are trying to access that employee class. Okay, so and we are giving some values. Okay, so 1011 street and 56233.25. So what we are doing, so we are sending those values into this. Okay, so this is basically the constructor, right? Constructor. Okay, so in that way we are going to access the value. So simply speaking, so now this is my class. Okay, so how the calling is done? Okay, so how the calling is generally done from here, so we'll try to understand. So here, so you can make a call from here. So this is the constructor call. So this is known as the parameterized constructor. Okay, so these values will go into here. So 1011 will go here, the name will come up here, and this salary will come up here. Okay, so these are the things that will be taken into this particular parameters. Okay, so these are known as the actual parameters. So actual parameters, and these are known as the uh, um, sorry, these are known as the formal parameters. Sorry, so these are known as the formal parameters, and these are known as the actual parameters. Okay, so actual parameters, so actual parameters will go and sit in formal parameters. Okay, and I'll say this dot envo. So what is this dot envo? So this one. So what is the purpose of going for this dot envo here? Because we are actually making these variables to be accessed from a different method. Okay, from a different method also. Okay, so these will not be coming out of the scope. Okay, because these are said to be the local variables. Okay, so these are said to be the local variables. Okay, local variable. So local variable scope is always inside the method. Okay, local variable scope will be always inside the method, so they will not be able to access outside the method. So that is why we took the help of the instance variables. So we took the help of the instance variables, and those instance variables may be accessed outside the methods also, okay. And now in order to access this dot envo, so we made this dot envo is equal to envo. So this envo, whatever you have sent from here, will be copied into this. Okay, so what is this basically? So this is going to be, so this is going to be this dot envo, this variable. Okay, so in that way you are looking at, so in this way you are looking at the employee class and accessing that employee class. Okay, accessing that employee class by providing the constructor. So this is the general mechanism of the classes that we have to create and objects. So as I've told you, Java is OOP. Why Java is OOP? Because everything is developed using class and object. Okay, so class and object. Okay, so hope everyone understood this. Anyone having any doubt, any question on this? So you can tell me. Because my main intention is to give you the core Java basics, which are really helpful for our advanced Java course, right? Okay, so now at any point of time you have any doubts, any questions, you can raise them right now. Okay, so no need to wait for any other time. Okay, right. So besides class and object, okay, so class and object besides class and object, any programming language, any object oriented programming language, okay, any object oriented programming language. So besides class and objects, any object oriented programming language will be following the four principles. Okay, so we'll be following the four principles. What are they? Inheritance, right? So the first one, inheritance. So what is inheritance? We'll understand. So next is polymorphism. So what is the next one? Polymorphism. So what is the next one? Abstraction. So what is the next one? Encapsulation. So encapsulation. Okay, so these are the four principles that need to be followed by, so that need to be followed by an object oriented programming. So these are only possible, so these are only possible with the availability of class and object, with the availability of class and object, right? So with the availability of class and object, so without class and object, so we won't be, so without class and object, so we won't be making it, so we won't be making the use of all these things, right? So now, so first we'll talk about inheritance. Okay, so what is inheritance basically? So inheritance is the concept of a class, a concept of class, properties being acquired by, the class properties being acquired by another class. So being acquired by another class, another class. Okay, so what are these properties basically? Properties are nothing but data and methods. Properties are nothing but data and methods. So what are the properties here? Data and methods. Okay, concept of a class property is being acquired by another class. Okay, so another class maintaining an easier relationship, maintaining an easier relationship. So they will maintain some easier relationship. Okay, so what exactly we are talking about here? So we are talking about the concept of inheritance, where you have a class properties being acquired by another class. So what they will maintain? They will maintain an easier relationship, literally. Okay, so now the class that gives the properties, the class that gives the properties is said to be, the class that gives the properties is said to be a parent class or a super class. So a parent class or a super class or a base class. So basically, so the class that will give the properties, the class that will give the properties is said to be a parent class or a super class or a base class or a base class. Okay, so now here what we are saying, so we are saying that, so we have a class. So what a class contains? A class contains literally data and methods, right? Data and methods. As the class contains data and methods, so this class may give its properties to another class. The class may give the properties to another class. So now for example here you have data d1 comma d2, let's say, and methods m1 comma m2. Okay, now this class will automatically contain d1, d2, m1 and m2. Okay, so they might use this d1, d2, they might call this m1, m2 and all that. And in addition to this, it can also have its own properties. Okay, so it can also have its own properties. Okay, so that's what the point. Okay, so what is inheritance? Inheritance is the concept of acquiring the properties of one class into another. So this is said to be the parent class. This is said to be the parent class, and this is said to be the child class. So parent class and child class. So parent is the one which will give, and child is the one which will take. Okay, so in that way you can call it as parent class, super class or base class. Okay, and the class that takes the properties, the class that takes the properties is said to be, is said to be is said to be what? So it's said to be a child or sub child or subclass or derived class or derived class or derived class. Okay, so in that way you are going to deal with it. Okay, inheritance means what? Concept of a class properties being acquired by another class, maintaining an easy relation. The class that gives the properties said to be a parent class or a superclass or the base class, and the class that takes the properties said to be a child class or subclass or the derived class. So in that way we are going to deal with the concept of inheritance. Concept of inheritance. Okay, right. So that is what is inheritance. Okay, and we have so many ways of inheritance. Like we have single inheritance. We have. I'll not go into that depth and make you understand, because already you might know. So as you are here for advanced Java training, so you might be knowing all that. Okay, so these are the types of inheritances. So where, so there might be multiple inheritance. Okay, so one point that we need to know here is Java classes does not support multiple inheritance. So Java classes does not support multiple. So what is multiple inheritance? Having two parents, two or more parents rather. So having two or more parents and one and only one child. So having two or more parents and one and only one child. Okay. So one and only one child. Okay. So this is multiple inheritance. So when we talk about multiple inheritance is not supported by Java classes. Okay, so then who supports interface support? So we'll talk about interface later. So that is what is known as inheritance concept. So these concepts are important. Okay, so knowing these concepts before going into the advanced Java is important. So now I'll just try to give you some idea on how to use that in Java program. Okay, now let me say I will be creating another class. Okay, so which will take the properties of this class. Okay, so now for example, if I want to take uh, so let's say I will have some setter and getter method. So without having any of these things, so I will just go for int env string name and all. So void. So I will say void set details. Okay, so void set details, and I want to go for display. Okay, so I want to set the value. So how I can set the values directly? So without the help of any constructor or anything, so I will try to help it out. Okay, so here what I want to do is I want to set the values up. So something like envo is equal to, okay, so and e name is equal to, and let's say esal is equal to, okay, so I'm setting it up in this way. Okay, so here, or otherwise I can just give a dummy one so that we can fill that up in our uh, class. Okay, so these are the methods that are being given by the employee class. Okay, so now I will say HR extends employee. So this is where you are maintaining an easier relationship. Okay, so you're maintaining an easier relationship. Employee is the parent of the HR. So HR also have e number, HR can also have e name, HR can also have esal. So HR also can set up the details, HR also can get the display done. Okay, so in that way we are going to go for it. So what we are going to do now is we are going to take these two things. So and this is called method overriding. So we'll come back to that. So we'll come back to that method overriding, method overloading. Okay. So here, so we will go for set details. So what is the what I want to set now? So I want to set these details basically. Okay, I want to set these details. So no need to again creating them. So we'll just assign those values because those can be taken up. So those can be taken up So those can be taken up by its child. So those can be taken up by its child. Okay. So and esal something around. So esal something around. Okay. Okay. So this much. Okay. So in this way, you are going to set it up. So what are the things that you are using? You are using envo, ename, and esal. Who gave you this? The employee gave you this. Okay. So who is employee now? Employee is the parent class, HR is the child class, HR is the child class. Okay, so display, so definitely you can display the details. So what are the details you want to display? So you want to display the e number, you want to display the e name, and you want to display the e salary. Okay, so e name, and you are going to display the e salary. Okay, so in that way you are going to use the display. So use the display and set details of the parent. Okay, so just an example of how we can use the parent class method. So in real time what happens is we will have so many classes that will be already created, so we need to make the use of them. Okay, make the use of them by creating its objects. Okay, so HR, so now we have to create HR. Okay, no need to go for employee because employee is just the base class. Employee is just the base class. So we are going for this HR, H is equal to. Okay, HRH is equal to new HR. HRH is equal to new HR. So here I will say H dot set details, H dot set details, H dot display, H dot display. So H dot HRH is equal to new HR, H dot set details and H dot display. Save them and now run them. So you will be able to get those details. So what exactly happened over here? So you have what you have done. So you have created a parent-child relationship. So what you have created over here? You have created a parent-child relationship. So who is the parent over here? Employee is the parent. Okay, so employee is the parent. So and who is the child over here? So HR is the child. So HR will take all the properties of the employee. Okay, so HR will take all the properties of the employee. So employee properties, everything are taken by, so employee properties are taken by the HR class. By the HR class means HR is an employee. HR is a employee. HR is a employee. So that is a kind of relationship that will be maintained by using a simple keyword extends. By using a simple keyword extends. So what extends will do? Extends will maintain an easier relationship. So extends will maintain an easier relationship. So HR is a employee. HR is a employee. So what we are doing here? So we are using these data values. So those data values are being used over here, and this method is being used over here. Okay, so and this method is being used over here. So this concept we call it as method overriding. So we'll talk much about that. So overriding. Okay, so we'll deal with method overriding. So where we are taking those values. Okay, so in that way we are going further. So in that way we are going for the accessing of those values. Okay, accessing of those values. Okay, so that is what is the inheritance. Okay, as I told you, so there will be multi-level inheritance, there will be hierarchical inheritance, there will be multiple inheritance. Obviously it won't support for your classes. Okay, so that's how it goes. So next object oriented concept is polymorphism. So what is this polymorphism basically? So polymorphism means one component of a program can be used in one to many ways. Okay, so that's what the point. So polymorphism, it is achieved by the process of method overloading, overloading, process of overloading and method overriding. So method overriding. So process, it is achieved by the process of method overloading and overriding. Okay, so method overloading and method overriding. So what is method overloading? So these are really important concepts as I told you before going into our advanced Java. Okay, so okay, so if you know all of them, so this will be like a review for all those things for you. So method overloading means overloading is a concept of, okay, so it is a concept, it is a concept of a single method, okay, single method with a difference in, or I can say to make it clear, one or more, it is a concept of having one or more methods, it is a concept of having one or more methods, so one or more methods with the same name, with the same name, with the same name, and a difference in number of parameters, with the difference in number of parameters, with the difference in number of parameters. It is a concept of having one or more methods with the same name and a difference in number of parameters, or if the number of parameters are same, if the number of parameters are same, there may be a difference. So there may be a difference in the type. There may be a difference in the type. Okay, so it is a concept of having one or more methods with the same name and a difference in number of parameters, or if the number of parameters are same, there may be a difference in the type. So there may be a difference in the type. Okay, so that's how you look at it. So there may be a difference in the type. Okay, so one simple example we'll go for. So now, okay, so here, so I'll go for a simple class so that it will be easy for us. So access EMP. So I will have some methods. Okay, I'll go for a simple one. So I'll not go too technical. So I'll say void add. So void add. So what I can do here, I can say void add, but what this will become? So this will become a duplicate. Okay, so there should be some difference, right? So there should be some difference. How we can make the difference? We can make the difference by adding a parameter. So we can make a difference by adding a parameter. So now, for example, I will have one more. So I will have one more parameter. So I will have one more parameter, parameterized method, but it is of same int. So let me change the name. It doesn't matter. Okay. So what I need to do? So I need to say int a comma int b, number of parameters. Okay, so number of parameters. So now, for example, here also one, here also one. So what I can do is I can just make it one single, but I can go for some double. Okay, so we can have a change in the number of parameters, or we can have a change in the type of the parameter if the number is same, of course, if the number is same. Okay, so in that way we are looking at it. Sorry. Okay, so now I can even have two parameters. I can even have two parameters, something like int a comma double b. So like this I can have anything, and there is no problem with the uh, access specifiers, or you can say something like, now for example, if I say int over here and if I say double over here, there is no issue at all. That doesn't matter. So that does not matter. Okay, there can be anything. There can be anything. So it doesn't matter if we have int double or anything. So no need to be the same. Okay. So now, as we wrote int here, so I want to return. So I have to return an, what I have to return here? I have to return an integer value only. I can return an integer value only. So here I have to return a double value. I have to return a double value. As you are adding double with int, so the whole value will become double. The whole value will become double. Okay, so in that way you are going to look at it. And here, so what I need to do is I need to go for access EMP. Okay, so here also I would like to go for some. Okay, so 10 plus 20. So here also I would like to go for, so 10 plus b. Okay, so 10 plus b. So here access EMP AE is equal to new access EMP. So new access EMP. So we are creating the object. Okay, creating the object and assigning that to AE basically. And no need to pass any values because we don't have any parameterized constructor over here. So we are accessing the which constructor here. So we are accessing the default constructor. Okay. So in that way you can go for AE dot add. So add will definitely give you 10 plus 20. Okay, but as you are using return over here, So you can go for system.out.println. So a dot add of, so which method you are calling up? You are calling up int. Okay, say 56. Okay, so and the third method is also void again, so no need to use any system.out something also. So here I can say so 5.2. Okay, so 5.2, and then last one is going to give me double, right? So last one is going to give me double. So system.out.println. So here I would say two values. Okay, so one is integer and the other one is okay. So in that way you are going to okay double add uh, so int a. Okay, so sorry, so I should say a dot add, so I should give 5 comma 6.5, right? Okay, so in that way I need to send that value. So what exactly is going to happen over here? So the values are going to be passed according to the parameters. Okay, so that is why it is also known as, that is why it is also known as the, it is also known as what, dynamic, I mean, static uh, polymorphism or static binding, we can say, because it all depends on the parameters that you send at the compile time. So this call will go here. So what it will do, it will print 10 plus 20. Okay, so now we are making a call to this, and this value will be returned back, and that value will be printed a plus 100. Okay, so 56 plus 100, so 156. Okay, so that is why you need to put a print. So if you are not putting, if you are not keeping that print ln value, it won't be giving you any value back. Okay, so in that way you are looking at it. Okay, so that's how we are going to deal with, so that's how we are going to deal with the things. Okay, so now add 5.2. So where this 5.2 will go, so this 5.2 will go here. Okay, so 5.2 will go here, and 10 plus p. Okay, so we are going 10 plus 5.2, so that will be 15.2. So then we said add 5 comma 6. So this call will go here, so it will say 5 and 6.5. So 5 and 6.5. So what will be returned? A comma, I mean a plus b will be returned. So which will be 11.5. So in that way, you are going to have the concept of method overloading. So method overloading. So simply, if I am saying add, so a dot add, so you have four methods. You have four methods. Okay. So those four methods, but the difference in parameters, the difference in parameters. So this is the way that we are the concept of looking into the concept of the method overloading. Okay. So then we have the concept of method overriding. Okay. So method overriding. So what is this method overriding? So method overriding, it is a concept of, so what is this? It is a concept of a method in parent and child. So parent and child. So it is a concept of method in parent and child. So parent and child, where the child class, so where the child class will have its own implementation, will have its own implementation. So its own implementation. So where a child will have its own implementation. So child will have its own implementation. Concept of method in parent and child, where the child class will have its own implementation of the parent class. Of the parent class. It will have its own implementation of the parent class. Okay, so parent class. Okay. So here the methods must have the same name, same parameters, and even same return type, same return type. But but the access specifiers, the access specifiers of the access specifier of the child must be weaker than that of the parent. That of the parent. So must be weaker than that of the parent. So child must be weaker than that of the parent. Okay. So what exactly I am trying to say here is okay. So let me say parent class specifier, and I here I'll say okay. So let me put in a table so that we can understand it clearly. So parent class specifier and child class specifier and child class specifier. Okay. So when the parent class specifier is private, okay, so private. So method, parent class method specifier, child class. Otherwise, you will get confused basically. So private. So private means whenever a parent method is private, so it is not accessible in the child. Okay. Now, what exactly I'm trying to say here is now, for example, I will have uh, another class arithmetic operations. So arithmetic operations, something like I will say private void add. So I will say private void add. So now you can see that there is no. Okay. So you can see that there is no concept of inheritance over here. Okay, so if I say extends, then only the concept of taking the parent and all comes to the picture. Okay, extends AOP. So AOP. So now this is going to be the child of this, but if it is private, it is not. Now the difference is I'll just take out private. You can see this, right? Overrides AOP dot add. Now if I'm saying private, it is not accessible. So now this becomes the parent method and this becomes the child specific method. So it is not the method that is taken from the parent. Okay, it is not the method that is taken from the parent. Okay, so that's how you look at it. So this is not the method that is taken from the parent. Okay, so it is legal to use here because child method is different and parent method is different. Okay, that is why I'm saying it is not accessible. Okay, next you have default. So you have default. So default in the sense, so this is default. So both can be default, but you cannot have higher access specifier. You cannot have higher access specifier. What it says, cannot reduce the visibility. Okay, so we cannot reduce the visibility. So you can have the same basically. You can have the same or the lower ones, but you cannot have the higher one here. So private default. So default. Child can be default, and child can be. So child can be now. For example, if I'm saying protected, so child can be protected. So that also is fine. So child can also be protected. So child can be protected. Okay. So child can also be public. So weaker. Uh, so generally there is an order here. So something like private, default, okay, protected. So this is the order basically, private, protected, and public. So when the parent is private, it is not applicable. When it is default, so the lower ones are acceptable, And when we have protected and public are okay. Protected and public are okay, but default is not possible. Okay. So and finally we have public. So public, so only public is fine. So no other things are accessible. Okay, so this is the way that we can deal with the parent class and child class. Okay, so if the parent is uh, private, say child class is not said to be overridden. Okay, when it is default, the child can be default protected and public. So if the parent is protected, the child can be protected and public. So if the parent is public, the child must be public. Okay, so it is advisable to have all public so that there is no issue at all.